This right here is the real grade Unicorn 03 Phenex. And as far as I know, this is the most expensive real grade to date. Retailing at an eye-watering 12,760 yen, this is no cheap kit right here. Oh yeah, and that's also if you pre-ordered it through Premium Bandai. Which, if you're watching this and thinking about getting it, you didn't. Neither did I. So if you do factor in resellers, shipping, etc., you're looking at paying about double that, if not more, as time goes on. So basically the whole premise behind this video, besides being a review of this particular kit, is this worth it? Is the Phenex actually worth its weight in gold? So before we actually get into the review proper, I am going to put a couple of thoughts in your head to think about while I go through this. The first of which is, this uses the exact same plating technology as both of the plated high grades. At the end of the day, your model kit is going to end up on a shelf with the rest of your collection, and does it look different enough to the high grade to be worth that whopping price? At the same time, I will mention though that the high grade is not cheap when it comes to high grades. The second aspect is, what is 12,000 yen worth to you? That is essentially $120 or 110 euro. For essentially the same price, you can get 3 real grade kits that I ranked Gundarium tier, which means they're better than the best. That means you could get yourself a real grade Sazabi, a real grade New Gundam, and the standard real grade Unicorn Gundam for the price of this. It is 1,000 yen more than this, but that's if you got it at the retail price, which now you will not. And just to further expand on that thought, you can buy 5 of the absolutely awesome real grade Crossbone Gundam for the same price this retails for. Sure, honestly, you could get yourself a perfect grade for that exact price. So now that I've put those particular thoughts into your head, I will mention that this is a very nice kit. It is not without its issues, of course, but it is still very nice, feels premium, and looks awesome, well, if you like gold. But anyway, that is enough about all that. Let's get right into this review. Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at the astronomically expensive real grade Unicorn Gundam Phenex. So I did mention that this is one of the all-time most expensive real grades out there, but I did forget about the perfectibility. This was not a standard release, it wasn't even a standard P Bandai release. This did come with a DVD, so that did affect the price. Did I say DVD? Turning into an old man here. It came with a Blu-ray. Anyway, as always, when it does come to these kits that are hard to get, or in the case of the perfectibility, almost absolutely impossible to get, then your one-stop shop for these is Bai. That's where I got mine right here, and that's where you can get yours. So the link is down there in the description. If you sign up through that link, you will get 1,000 yen off your first order, which may put a bit of a dent into the markup on this bad boy right here. Not much of a dent, but a bit of a dent, and if you want one, down there in the description. Now here we go. So there we go, finally there's the real grade Unicorn Gundam Phenex out of the box, snapped together with no extra effort, because this is one of those kits you really can't put extra effort into. It's already plated, and anything you kind of do to it may destroy that plating. Of course you might want to put on some decals, etc. There is some I will show later on, but for the sake of this review, it's got pretty much nothing on it. So there is no denying this thing looks incredible. The gold may not be for some people, it may be for some, but I think in this particular situation, because the real grade Unicorn is such a brilliant looking kit already, it looks fantastic on it. Up in close, this thing looks ridiculously good, but from a distance, things change up a little bit. But up close, it looks great. If you're into photos of your gunpla, video, etc., this thing looks fantastic. So of course the main question is going to be, and it's always the question when it comes to a plated kit, is how are those nubs? So the real grade Unicorn is a heavily undergated kit. They probably had the Phenex in mind while they were designing it, but they are super high-end premium kits, and when Bandai makes super high-end premium kits, undergating tends to be the way that they go. So that does mean you can paint them on the runners, etc. And this is essentially painted on the runner. But basically, to sum it up, are you going to see a bunch of those little pock-marked nubs all over this like we would have seen right here on its brother, the high grade, like that one right there in the front of the arm, you can see there. A pretty bad one right there in the Armed Armor DE. And there is a couple of bad ones back here. But talking about the real grade, well, back to him, or should I say her? Well, this right here is a kit that did not go unscathed. There's one right there on the chest, and one right there up on the side of the arm that are pretty bad. But the Unicorn right here itself isn't the worst out of the whole kit. That is the Armed Armor DEs. So as far as I know, these were designed for the Banshee or the Bande Dessinée version of the Unicorn, so these seem to be a bit of an afterthought and don't have the same amount of undergating. So yes, you are going to see a whole bunch of those little black spots everywhere. Oddly enough, and I'm not sure what the whole thought process behind this is that over here on the parts of the Armed Armor DE that we would have seen with the Bande Dessinée, Banshee, etc., those feature a lot of these little black nubs because the plastic underneath the plating is black. But the new parts, which were designed right here for the Phenex, those are on a yellow plastic. So even though the surface of each of these little segments here do have those little nub marks on them, because they're yellow and small, they don't stand out as much. And I will apologize, at this point right here, I'm not wearing gloves for this review. Fell right into my hands there. So this will... power outage. And power back on. But anyway, like I said, no gloves, so we might end up with some fingerprints. But I will give it a bit of a rub down every now and then. So this is one of those kits that you really need to get it rotating to just appreciate how glossy and how shiny and how metallic this thing right here is. Also a bit of a close-up there on the right so you can see all of those fingerprints in high definition glory. And realize what greasy creatures we humans are. But yeah, this thing does look incredible. Some people may not like the metallic finish, some people may. Definitely from a distance and sometimes even in close, that high reflective surface does obscure a lot of the awesome detail that is on the real grade Unicorn. But besides all the other Phenexes that are out there is nothing that quite looks like this here. But speaking of the other Phenexes out there, I did mention this already, but the exact same gold plating is used on the high grade, and in general it is kinda hard to tell them apart, especially from a distance. If you got a trained gunpla eye, you'll have no issue whatsoever. Of course, the high grade here doesn't have the same level of detail, the plastic on the grey parts is a lot lighter, and you can see that it doesn't have the transforming parts up here in the armed armors, like this guy over here. All of the parts that will transform up there are quite obvious, and the same kind of goes inside the torso, up on the shoulders, etc. when you do get in close. So at first glance, these do seem very similar, both the real grade and the high grade. They both have the same sort of finish, which seems like a chrome metallic finish with a clear yellow over it. On closer inspection, the real grade does look a little bit warmer. These are both filmed right now under the exact same light in the exact same position, so you can see exactly what each one looks like. But once again, the real grade does look a little bit warmer, but if I'm not mistaken, we still have that real grade two-tone color on the real grade. So I'm not sure how well this will show up in the video, but from what I can see up here on the shoulder, and give that a little bit of a rubby. So this lower section down here seems to be in a warmer shade of gold than this segment up here. So I do believe there is two shades, one that looks a little bit deeper and one that is a little bit, well, how to say, like less warm, less yellow, a little more silvery. But once again, from a distance, you won't really notice that so much. But I think at this point that is enough talk about what it looks like this. Let's get it transformed. So anyway, there is the real grade Unicorn Gundam Phenex in destroy mode, and all I have to say is this is not the easiest thing ever to transform. It's small, it's finicky, as the Unicorn Gundams tend to be, but there's something about that coating that's so slippery, not even in your hands, but the parts themselves just seem to fall off more readily than I ever found on any version of the Unicorn that I've built before, which is the standard version, the Band Dessinée, and the Full Armor Unicorn. Of course, not including all the stuff on the back of the Full Armor Unicorn, that's likely to fall off. And also the Banshee Norn. So none of them I found as prone to falling apart as this, so I'm assuming that the coating that is on the gold parts, which is quite slippery in your hand, is also lacking traction against the parts that they're attached to, because they're not just coated on the front, they're coated on the back as well. So that is something to keep in mind. If you ever found the real grade Unicorn finicky already, well now, multiply that finickiness by 2 or 3 because it likes to fall apart. But anyway, that's what it looks like transformed. It does look awesome. It has a lot more extra detail than what we would have seen with the high grade, which we're going to look at side by side with this very soon. Well, there isn't really much else to say here about this besides the fact that the blue does not pop as much as the red would have on the standard version. It looks quite dark inside of all that gold. And just like any of the previous versions of this, it is easy to untransform parts by accident while just handling it. Like that right there again. Stop doing this to me, Phenex. There we go. But anyway, there it is, side by side with the high grade. This right here is the high grade, and just goodbye. Anyway, there it is, side by side with the high grade. From a distance, once again, if that was up on your shelf, you wouldn't really notice too much in the difference. The biggest, once again, is the color. This is definitely a whole lot warmer than the high grade over here. Not incredibly so, and every now and then I actually wonder to myself if it is or not, but I'm pretty sure that is a warmer shade of gold over there on the real grade than what we have right here on the high grade. The blue on the real grade is a little bit richer than what we have on the high grade. It's definitely got more blue pigment or whatever in the plastic than what we see here on the high grade variant. That's a little bit more faded in comparison. And of course there is a whole bunch of different detailing. For example, we have the gray section there because this whole armed armor DE can transform, this one cannot, so it's just in the same gold as the rest of it. This is an absolute dirt magnet, as you can see. But there's probably a bunch of other things I don't even notice on this that differs between the two. One of which is we do have nicer detailing on these parts right here. This has a kind of multi-faceted surface there. We've got the line down the middle giving it 3 different surfaces. Whereas on the high grade right here, those are just flat. The connection part back here is a lot more detailed on the real grade. We'll see that in a minute. I will mention that the plastic on this is uber brittle. Once again, this is the high grade, so these bits snap off like nobody's business. Happened on both. And over here on the real grade, we've got a ton of articulation back there. It does look a little bit basic. They're not the prettiest looking arm segments there, but they get the job done and they are quite strong for, well, all of this jazz they have to hold on to right here. And one thing that really does make this real grade so much better than either of the high grades, besides the fact that it does transform, it's technically both kits in one and then some, are the tails back here hanging off the armed armor wings. As you can see on the high grade destroy mode, they're gone. On the high grade unicorn mode, those are gone, and the reason is they're absolute, well, excuse my French, absolute shite. They fall off all the time, absolute flimsy garbage. But as for what we've got here on the real grade, these are glorious. They're actually the best part of the armed armor DEs. So inside of these, there is a doubled over wire, which gives us a lot of strength and a lot of nice articulation without them falling apart. So these definitely have me impressed. But literally, it's only like 40 minutes till Final Fantasy VII comes out, so I'm gonna rush the last of this review out as quickly as possible. Let's go! Leftover stuff-wise, there isn't a whole lot of extra stuff. There's just like gold versions of the Unicorn V-Fin, the head, but that's about it. There is the sheet of decals. These are just stickers. I'm not sure how that red would actually look against gold. Be nice if these were actually in a silver, like a reflective silver. That would have been so awesome, but these are red and not so interesting. But now moving on into the accessories, and there is the real grade Unicorn Gundam Phenex with absolutely everything that it comes with. And what we get in here is pretty much what we saw before. All those hands right there, we saw those before with the other real grade unicorns. Those things there, those are for holding the shields on the arm if you want to. They're more leftover parts than anything else. Next up then, we've got a gold Banaji, or Banagher if you prefer. He is made out of that awesome reflective gold. Actually, I like this gold little Banagher so much that I'm going to give you a little spin of him right now. This is one of the coolest little pilot figures I've ever seen. Seriously, what other kits out there have gold-plated pilot figures in them? If there is more, drop a list down there in the comments. I want to know. This thing blows my mind. Excited about that little guy there. Next up then, we've got a pair of beams. These are your standard beams in a light blue. They are for using with the beam sabers. We've got an extra V-fin. There is the opened out Phoenix-y looking one. We do have the closed up one as well, but guess what? Woohoo! I broke it. But luckily, there is a spare. So next up in here then, we've got the Beam Magnum, as awesome as it always has been with these real grade kits, but because we have seen these kits quite a lot, I'm going to put a link to another video up here so you can actually check this out in more detail. I'm not going to go through it all once again in this video, but the Beam Magnum in real grade is awesome. So next up in here, we've got two blue beams. These are your standard beams, just in a light blue, which is quite nice. As for how you can use these in the wrists, which is one of my favorite ways. I'll pop up an older review here so you can see what that looks like. And they can also be used in the beam saber handles. Once again, up here. I'm not doing it again. Do you like hands? Because next up we've got some hands. There is the widespread dynamic ones. These just pop out. Ball joint attachment. Next then we've got a holding hand with an extended trigger finger. So we do have a left and a right of these if you wanted dual wielding weapons. If you've got a second beam magnum, it can equip both and wreck some shit. Even though this does have a slightly extended trigger finger, as you can see right there, this is the only holding hand in here, so that's also for using with the beam sabers. And lastly then, in here we've got a fist for some punch action. A lot of what is new up here on the section holding the armed armor DE wings together is new, so we'll take a quick look at that. This has all the same transforming aspects that we would have seen with the armed armor DE with the band dessinée version of the real grade unicorn, so if you want to know more about these and their transforming awesome ways, then you can check out that review. But what that review won't have is these awesome tails. I did mention these already. There's a wire inside of these, so these are nice, posable, and strong, unlike what we would have seen in the past. The articulation on these is quite impressive. We've got a wiggle down here, which allows them to move out like so. We've got a second one up here, which makes them move even more. This one lets them move all the way up like that. So as you can see, a lot going on here. We've got this much of a turn at this one, as well as this bend up and down we just saw. We also have a second one now up here, so these can really fold round. And then it all ends up with this final twist right here. So you're going to get whatever pose you want out of these. And this is quite solid for what it is. So as for the articulation on this kit, I'm not going to go through it piece by piece, as I've done that before in the past multiple times with this kit. So all I'm going to say is, on the whole, the articulation on this is extremely impressive for something that's 1/44th scale with a transformation. I will mention, however, a lot of parts are a bit finicky and like to untransform themselves while you're posing it, so if you like finicky kits where you have a lot of things to move around, adjust, etc., then you'll love it. If you just like blasting something into a quick pose, it might drive you mad. But as far as I've seen, when it comes to the Unicorn Gundam, if you want good poses out of it, the best you're going to do is the real grade. I've never done a full pose off pitting the perfect grade Unicorn Gundam against the real grade Unicorn Gundam to find out which is the most posable, but in general, when it comes to gunpla, smaller kits are easier to pose than larger ones, so I have a feeling this one might win, but don't quote me on that. So that is it for the review, and at the beginning of this video I did pose the question, is this kit worth that huge price Bandai is asking for it, or the even huger price you'll end up paying for it from resellers? And I'm not going to give my opinion on that. That is your decision to make because it is your money to spend. So once again, I will reiterate what I did say at the beginning, and that is, for this price, you could buy the Gundarium tier real grade Sazabi, and the Gundarium tier real grade New Gundam, and the Gundarium tier real grade Unicorn. All three of those kits pretty much for the price of this. But as for the kit, what I would rank it is, first off, I will mention that in the real grade Unicorn review, I didn't have a ranking system back then, so I did retcon that to be Gundarium tier. So the standard real grade Unicorn, to me, is Gundarium tier. This one right here has been demoted, though, to Gold tier. And the reason is, this is still the same awesome real grade Unicorn kit, but it has some parts that are just so annoying. One, you can't touch this without gloves or it becomes a fingerprint magnet, but that is kind of what these kits are like. The second one is, there is still a lot of nub marks on this kit, up on the shoulders, on the chest, Especially up on those armed armor DE wings, there is a lot of those you will have to correct yourself, so it is not perfect out of the box. The next one is something I did not expect. That because this has that slippery finish, a lot of the parts are more likely to pop off than they were on the standard versions of the Unicorn or the Banshee, so it is a little bit more irritating than those kits in that aspect as well. But don't get me wrong, gold tier still means this is an absolutely phenomenal kit. I absolutely adore it, it looks very unique, it'll stand out in any collection, but at the end of the day, if you're going to get yourself a glitzy, crazy gold plated kit, are you going to get one this small? So yeah, I'm just going to try and avoid the rambling and just break it down to this. It's small, it's awesome, it's gold, it's expensive, but hey, there's nothing like flexing with something rare, expensive, and awesome in your collection, is there? But anyway, if you do want one of your own, there is a link down there in the description. You can get yours through Buyee. But as usual, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews. And as always, I will see you next time. As always, I cannot finish this video right here without thanking each and every one of you guys who watches my videos. Whether you just watch them, like them, share them, or support me on the channel memberships and Patreon like Craig Jerry, Kaiser721, Bolwick, Tyler Sanders, Caleb Engelhart, and Hank Handsome. It's time!